Sunday, February the 25th, 2018, to you. It seems there are no Sundays for Chinese politicians. The Communist Party of China, CPC Central Committee, was supposed to convene for today. The committee, the largest of the party's elite ruling bodies, proposed some constitutional amendments to the National People's Congress, NPC, the largely rubber-stamp Chinese legislature. Those amendments include scrapping term limits for both the president and vice president. Accordingly, Western media focused on how powerful Mr. Xi Jinping has become. Given that the Communist Party's Secretary General and the Chairman of the Central Military Committee, the Commander-in-Chief of the Chinese Armed Forces, have no term limits, many speculate that Mr. Xi is aiming to remain in power for the rest of his days. Many pundits are already calling him Emperor Xi in an attempt to translate the Chinese word of Ling Xiu, a title Mr. Xi granted to himself. Once again, what are Mr. Xi's thoughts on those Western news analyses? Personally, there are other proposed constitutional amendments that I find as much interesting as the scrapping of presidential term limits. First, the Central Committee proposed that harmonious socialist relations among ethnic groups were to be written into the Constitution. Secondly, according to these modifications, Chinese cities would be granted the power to make local laws and regulations. In other words, China may be aiming to become a decentralized multicultural state. Perhaps party's leaders in Beijing are somewhat fearful of nationalist waves. We must never forget that in the end what led to the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 were the nationalist movements which surged all over the country. China does not want to follow such a path, let alone taking the successful way to its doom. Let us see what happens. Let us assume that Mr. Xi is enabled to become China's leader for life. That does not mean that things will be that way. In my opinion, the proposed amendment will encourage discipline within the Communist Party. Furthermore, President Xi wants to be spared the lame duck syndrome. Many pundits are comparing him to Chairman Mao, but too few of them remember the deep political crisis which China passed through after Mao died in 1976. If Mr. Xi became ruler for life, there would be so much political stability after his death that the party could well implode. In the long run, being a lifetime leader is not a wise decision. Therefore, I would not be one if I thought like a Chinese. Finally, we should consider that Mr. Xi is 64 years old. He will be 68 when his term expires. Indeed, he is by no means a young man. On the other hand, China's life expectancy is 76 years. Surely he knows that. Even Chinese are not China. The world is still on.